Major free agent news out of Hendrick Motorsports, and it sounds more and more like Kyle Busch is sticking with RCR for the long haul. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Friday, y'all. Big weekend right around the corner. Memorial Day weekend, 3-day weekend, 4-day weekend, really, because tonight, the ARCA Menard Series races at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Cletus McFarland makes his intermediate stock car racing debut. Then we've got trucks, Xfinity Cup, back to back to back. The Indianapolis 500 Sunday afternoon on Fox. Kyle Larson attempting the double. So many storylines. Boy, it really is a happy Friday, but we're catching up on some major free agency news and rumors here today. Actually, let's start with Jimmie Johnson, because Jimmie Johnson is running the Coca-Cola 600 Sunday afternoon. He's doing his own version of the double, because early on Sunday, he'll do the two-seater fastest seat in sports with Tom Brady. Johnson, Brady, two 7-time champions on track at the Brickyard. I can already see the Fox executives salivating. Jimmie Johnson will then jet over to Charlotte to run the Coke 600. It will be his 700th career Cup Series start. A lot of fans have said, hey, wouldn't it be fitting for a 7-time champion to wrap up his career at 700 starts? At Charlotte, the Coke 600, a crown jewel that Jimmie won 4 times in his prime. The place literally used to be called Lowe's Motor Speedway. It just makes sense, right? Well, not so fast. Jimmie Johnson confirmed to Alex Hayden of MRN this week that this weekend will not be his final Cup Series start. He said, quote, "The 600 is not going to be my last. It'd be nice to end on a round number, but I'll still be behind the wheel at least next year, and as long as it makes sense for me to run cars here at Legacy Motor Club." Wow, Jimmie turns 50 later this year. He's entering his Mark Martin era. You gotta wonder if that third place finish in the Daytona 500 a couple months ago gave him a little extra shot in the arm. Or maybe it's just that his cars are finally getting more competitive. John Hunter Nemechek has back-to-back top 10 finishes at Kansas, at Texas, and he raced his way into the All-Star main at North Wilkesboro. Maybe Jimmie saw the criticism of Tony Stewart not being hands-on at Stewart-Haas and said, bet, I'm gonna be super hands-on. You're gonna have to pry my hands off the steering wheel. Hey, I love that Jimmie Johnson has this passion, continues to want to race, want to drive race cars. I hope he has a great run this weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. 700 starts, and according to Jimmie himself, it won't be his last. Let's talk contracts, free agency, dare I say, silly season? Well, this first headline is not very silly. This morning, Hendrick Motorsports announced they have extended William Byron for 4 more years. Byron now has a Cup Series contract through 2029. This was a no-brainer. Hendrick has every incentive to keep this guy, and I can't imagine William Byron wanted to go anywhere else. It's crazy that this is already William Byron's 8th full-time Cup Series season. He and Rudy Fugle have become a formidable duo in recent years. Byron has 14 career Cup Series wins, has been to back-to-back championship 4s. I believe he is second only to Kyle Larson in total next-gen wins. Someone fact-check me on that. William Byron just looks like a Hendrick Motorsports driver. Like, I can picture him in the Hendrick vest when he's older. He's low maintenance, very consistent, plenty of talent, doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's gonna get himself in trouble. He's gonna drive your race car really freaking fast, then he's gonna go home, hop on iRacing, build a Lego set, and do it all over again the next week. He may not have the flair or the spotlight of Jeff Gordon, but he's really good at what he does. He's still very young, the youngest driver on Team Hendrick, a worthy extension. I said it earlier this week. I know he's young, but right now, William Byron is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Great deal for both parties, no brainer. Before we move on, Hendrick is one of the few NASCAR teams that publicizes their driver contract lengths. If we look at their current Cup Series lineup, Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman are due up next for extensions. Both of their deals go through next season. Although it's worth noting that Ally has a deal with Hendrick through 2028, so that could grant Alex Bowman some additional security there. Chase Elliott's contract that he signed all the way back in 2022 goes until 2027, so he has 2 more years on top of this year of his current deal. So Hendrick Motorsports, 4 really talented, still young race car drivers, and at least a couple of them are still still locked up for multiple years. Let's move on from youth to veteran championship experience. Kyle Busch recently turned 40 years old, and on Door Bumper Clear Live this week, Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic said that Kyle Busch is likely staying with Richard Childress Racing for the foreseeable future. Bianchi said he talked to RCR president Mike Verlander, and Verlander told him, quote, "I don't see Kyle racing anywhere else." Now, obviously, that's not a guarantee. I mean, what else is Mike Verlander going to say there? Oh, we hope Kyle Busch sticks around. No, he's going to make a definitive statement. If Richard Childress Racing has a team option, they're going to pick it up. It is worth noting that tomorrow at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Richard Childress Racing has a press conference scheduled. Not sure if that's Kyle Busch related, but it's worth mentioning. We've discussed Kyle Busch's future several times this year, and I've always said the reality is that RCR is probably the best, most realistic option for Kyle Busch at this point in his career. Again, Kyle Busch is now 40 years old. Let's start there. He's still a really good driver and brings a ton of knowledge and experience to any team, but he's also admitted that he doesn't have a great feel for the current next-gen car. Kyle Busch is a first-ballot Hall of Famer. I would argue top 10 driver of all time. But right now, he is not as valuable as he was 5 or especially 10 years ago. His driving style doesn't really suit the next-gen car, and he struggled to adapt as quickly as some other drivers. I'm not sure Kyle Busch right now is a top 10 current driver. And even if he was, I'm not sure that any of the top 10 cars would be available to him this cycle. The only teams that are obviously better than Richard Childress Racing, that are bigger, have more resources, have more speed, are Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske. We just talked about Hendrick. All their drivers are under contract. They're all top 10 in points. Why break that up? As far as Penske, Logano, Blaney, they're not leaving. And while we don't know the details of Austin Cindric's contract, I think he stays on for at least another year. He's lost his safety net now that his father, Tim Cindric, is no longer with the organization. But Austin has shown improvement the past couple of seasons. He's already got a win this year. He's qualified for the playoffs. I don't see Penske letting him walk after this season at least. And even if they did, Kyle Busch, teammates with Joey Logano, I don't know if that works. And then Joe Gibbs Racing, another team, I think their roster is pretty well set. The only question mark is Denny Hamlin. Maybe he chooses to retire. I don't think he does this season. I don't think a reunion with Kyle Busch is likely. The only other team that I guess I'd say is better than RCR is 2311. But with 2311, I mean, lawsuit and charter drama aside, I think Wallace and Reddick will be back, and Riley Herbst probably has a multi-year deal, but even if he gets dropped after this season, Corey Heim is already under contract with the team. He's Cup Series ready. He's cheaper than Kyle Busch. That seems like a no-brainer. So there you go. All of the teams better than RCR kind of have their stuff figured out. Trackhouse, kind of a lateral move in my opinion. They both run ECR engines. Similar to 2311, if Trackhouse chooses to not renew Suarez's deal or for some reason SVG walks away, they've got Connor Zilic waiting in the wings, who's really, really good, very talented. He's not as good as Kyle Busch right now, but he's the future. And then there's Spire. I think that would also be a lateral move for Kyle Busch. And, Michael McDowell under contract. I don't think Carson Hocevar's going anywhere. Maybe Justin Haley could be on a short leash. But again, it's a lateral move in my opinion. That's my point. There aren't any obviously better rides available to Kyle Busch right now. That's why I've said all year that it seems to me like Kyle Busch is really trying to make the most of his current RCR situation. He's putting in the work, more sim time, studying hard. He's saying all the right things to the media this year. He knows this is probably the best opportunity he currently has, especially when you consider Brexton, now 10 years old, right? He's moving up the ranks. Richard Childress Racing could be a great landing place for Brexton in the near future. As far as Kyle, though, it's easy to point at the next-gen car and just say that is keeping Kyle from winning as much as he used to, and it's definitely a factor, but the lack of practice is as big of a factor in my opinion. Remember, from 2015 to 2019, Kyle Busch was winning 5-6 races a year, winning championships, and then what happened in 2020? Oh, that's right. Suddenly there's no practice, and Kyle Busch won only one race at the very end of the year. Even in Kyle's last year with Joe Gibbs Racing, he only got one win, and it was kind of a fluky win at Bristol Dirt. So it's not just the next gen or RCR's fault that Kyle Busch is not as good as he used to be. I think it's also the lack of practice. Look at a recent example. Circuit of the Americas, because of that new configuration, they had a longer extended full practice session back in March. And what happened in the race? Kyle Busch led the most laps. Give Kyle Busch, Randall Burnett, and RCR a full hour-plus practice session where they can make some real adjustments, feel out the car, and I think Kyle is still really, really good. Unfortunately, that's just not the reality most weekends. I mean, there will be some races this year with longer practice sessions. I think keep a close eye on Kyle at those venues. But in the meantime, I do really respect Kyle Busch for putting in the work this year for trying to make RCR happen. He's trying to embrace the new technology, be more of a sim driver, but the reality is Kyle Busch has always been at his best when he can feel out the race car, and he's just not being given that opportunity as much nowadays due to NASCAR's current practice format. Looking at the broader future of RCR, if Kyle does stay in the 8 car for another year or a couple more years, what happens next? Austin Dillon said on DBC a couple weeks ago that he has another year on his current contract, but once his deal is up, I mean, could we see Austin Dillon move into a full-time leadership role? Would that open up a Cup Series spot for Austin Hill, who is already 31 years old? Could it open up a spot for Jesse Love, who's a lot younger, but I think has a really high ceiling? Or will a completely different organization swoop in and take one or two of those guys? As much as we talk about Kyle Busch, I think a lot of RCR's future hinges on what decisions Austin Dillon makes. A lot of questions that will need to be answered in the not so distant future, but I wanted to wrap up this week talking contracts, talking Kyle Busch a bit. Seems more and more likely that Kyle Busch is going to stay with Richard Childress Racing, going to try to make this deal work, try to build this team back into a regular, consistent contender. Kyle Busch fans, let me know how you're feeling about those comments down in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're looking for the latest NASCAR news, content, commentary. We talk racing every single day all year long. A lot of good stuff on the channel this week. Todd Gilliland joined the show yesterday, 2 days ago. Coke 600 preview. Be sure to check out my recent videos. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, folks. A lot of great racing here in the United States, across the world even. I will talk to you likely Sunday night after the Indy 500 Coke 600 marathon. Have a great rest of your week, folks. I'll talk to you again soon.